So, yesterday I watched Monsters Inc. with a man, and I've watched it before, but I think this is my first time in 10 years or so, and I really like the movie. I seriously feel like it's perfectly shot. There's not one thing superfluous about it. There's so many establishing scenes in the first few minutes of the movie, um, for instance, where they're establishing how the city runs on screams. Screams are their source of energy, and there is a scream shortage, and how you extract these screams. This is all contained within an ad, and also establishes Sully and Mike as employees of Monsters Inc. and how Sully's really, really famous at scaring, and he has a reputation to uphold. The first few scenes also show how what happens when a monster is contaminated by a child, like that socks scene in the beginning where the CDA pulls up, and you see the whole process of what happens, how dire it is in the monster's eyes that you touch a child. And also the door shredding scene, and the talking about abandonment, how Bigfoot was banished to another place. Everything in the first few minutes would, how do you say it, would be recalled in the subsequent plot of the movie between Sully and Mike. So I find it really genius how it's really, really masterful storytelling. Every time something happens in the plot, you're like, oh yeah, they mentioned it in the beginning, this is, and then it's really easy to draw connections, and it makes the whole universe a really complete concept, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think the one thing that is superfluous about the movie is Celia, I forgot her name. Mike's girlfriend's rage. She seems to be enraged quite easily, and they made it a whole point to kind of give her a dog collar and her individual snakes dog collars, because I'm guessing they were in trouble for attacking someone, but that scene wasn't it's implied that she attacked someone like that. And I get that it might be comic relief, but I think that is the one thing that is what's going on, you know. But yeah. Oh, and also it doesn't pass the Bechdel test, I think. You don't have two female characters talking to each other at all, let alone about a topic that isn't related to a love interest. But yeah, okay, moving on. So I feel like the movie teaches us quite a few things, and I think the first thing it teaches me is corporations do not define who you are. The movie's name is Monsters Inc. It's literally the name of the company, but you can tell how the corporation itself was a really key part of both Mike and Sully's identities. How Sully's reputation is based on his scaring, and how Mike and Sully's friendship is premised on them working together as a team, with Mike being Sully's assistant at the scare floor. You can tell how the corporate theme kind of accelerates the whole plot. The only reason why they need to extract screams from children is to contribute to this company, and then later Randall and the boss, I forgot his name, they go through drastic measures just to increase the success of the company, of course at the expense of children's safety and well-being and stuff like that. So the whole plot is corporate greed. And yeah, and I realized I realized that there is a corporate theme to Pixar movies, in The Incredibles. Bob Parr starts out working at an insurance company, and then like the monotony of it and the inhumanity of it really wears him down, and that's why he is drawn to being a superhero again. Um, so there's like again that image of the unfeeling, inhumane boss who would go through anything, sacrificing the welfare of citizens and vulnerable people like the elderly and children just to further the ends of the company. And you have it again in Cars 2, where all in all is pitched as the new green energy, like panacea to I guess environmental damage. But then you learn that it's actually just literally textbook greenwashing, and it's actually a really bad thing for the world, and also the corporation is like killing race cars, like literally killing race cars. It's crazy. Um, so yeah, I think Pixar just they have a really dominant theme of telling you that a corporation itself does not have any ethical code. Like it might start off seeming like it's really a good thing, like in the case of All in All, but then it really teaches you that a corporation is just as good as the people that are behind it, and um, you shouldn't really rely on a company to have your back, because at the end of the day, it's just a profit-seeking company that would do whatever to stay afloat or to get ahead. Um, and it also tells you that people at the top, like your boss in a company, they could be really deceitful and mean and cruel. And I mean, it makes sense because they're capital oriented. Like, this is what got them in their job in their first place. So, yeah, I think this is like a really deep message, and it's really tastefully portrayed. It doesn't really feel down your throat, feel like they're forcing something down your throat. Maybe a bit with like All in All, because they're literally killing cars. But yeah, I like Pixar, and I think they do this thing really well, and it's a good lesson for children to learn. Like, yeah, just teaching you to see a person for what they are and not to take something at face value, and not to trust a company if just from them saying that they're good. And I think connected to this is the theme or the teaching that the one thing you own is your humanity. Like it's inevitable that we're all going to be part of a bigger organization. We have to make a living and stuff. But and like, things you own or what you wear and things you're forced to do at work, like you can't really control that. But the only thing you can control is your humanity and how you hold yourself and what you work towards. Like, this is your ultimate choice. It's just what you do with your own core, or what you think your irreducible core is. And I think Monsters Inc. really, yeah, like it shows us that part of your humanity is friendship. And I think that was really wonderfully portrayed in Monsters Inc. Like, how Sully and Mike, at first face, they're kind of a hierarchical couple. Like Sully is big and strong and famous, and he is the scarer. But on the scare floor, Mike is just his assistant, and he's smaller, and he always gets covered by logos or barcodes or whatever, because he's like a perfect round shape. But like the dynamic between them is really, really balanced, and you can see how they each have each other's backs. And while Sully is the main driver of I guess, what happens in the plot, because he's the one who gets attached to Boo in the first place and gets them into like trouble and stuff, like Mike is super, super accepting of Sully's ideals, like especially given that they all thought human babies were toxic. Like, I seriously think their friendship is a really, really wonderful friendship, and there's nothing wrong about it at all, and it's touching it, because you can see how they both have really distinct personalities. Like, Mike himself has his own values and goals. Like, he wants to get with Celia. Like, romance is a part of Mike's life, but meanwhile it's not a part of Sully's life. But they do end up finding a way to make it work, and to make sure that no one's relationships get compromised. Yeah, like how Sully helped Mike out when he forgot to file his paperwork so that Mike could go on a date with Celia and not get Celia mad because Celia was getting mad. Um, yeah, yeah, like it's small things like that. Like I really like their friendship. That's all I have to say. And another thing is just kindness and empathy and protecting what is good in the world. And the film does this by giving you like a baby, like a toddler. This is the thing that is good and worth protecting. I really like it when movies do that and when they have the protagonist do whatever it takes to take care of something that is clearly very vulnerable and innocent. Like, yeah, I don't know. The third thing I learned is that Randalls exist in the world. As I mentioned before, like, we're all part of some kind of corporate structure one way or the other. You can choose to keep your humanity, or you can choose to forgo it for some material gain. And a lot of Randalls exist in the world, like, and they might trick you to get ahead of you, and they're just not really nice people, or you can tell they've kind of let go of who they are deep down. And I think watching a movie, and especially an animated movie, helps you kind of visualize the sort of person you don't want to become. Like, obviously it's just a cartoon and no one is, like, it's really rare to have someone be actually as bad as Randall. Like no one will be in a situation, whatever. Like, what I mean is just, it's a metaphor. Like, everything is a metaphor. And yeah, so just don't be a Randall, and also realize that you would find yourself in Randall's situation. You would find yourself in the place where you're competing head to head with someone else, and it would be really easy and really cheap to just find a way to get ahead of them. But at the end of the day, this is just temporary, and there will always be a way of actually getting better than that person in a completely fair way, like a fair and honest way. Yeah. And another thing that the movie made me think about is, like, what am I afraid of, or what we are afraid of? So, like, the society and the monster world, they're all super afraid of children. We don't know why. Like, they never told us. Maybe is there an origin to this fear? Because to me it sounds pretty irrational. Like, why the heck would they be afraid of children? But like, what are we afraid of? What are we as a society afraid of? Because there's definitely something that we're afraid of, but we just rationalize it in some way that makes it seem like it's not a fear, but rather just like a taken for granted aversion to something. So I don't really know. Like, I think from time to time I'm really afraid of germs, but I don't like it's. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I remember in year one, like uni year one, I would be really afraid of just using cutlery without using, like, washing it in boiled water first. And I think I'm better at it now, but there's also some areas where I'm really afraid of, like, dust and like getting sick and things like that. So maybe that's definitely something that I'm afraid of that I should work on. And then when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, like, children, like the children scream industry is kind of like the nuclear industry to a man, as in, like, we're all really afraid of nuclear stuff, like leaving the factory or power plant. And meanwhile, the monsters are really afraid of, like, a child's sock leaving the power plant, and they have their own, like, child detection agency that kind of, in hazmat suits that clean you up, like, any contamination and stuff. But I think that's something I have to think more about. But I think it'll take, like, another species or another alien planet's Pixar to point out to us what we as humanity really fear irrationally. I mean, like, everyone's different. There will be some people that are really afraid of something. Meanwhile, the whole world would be like, why would they think that? Like, I think one thing is maybe the caste system. I keep forgetting how to pronounce it, but like some kind of class system that exists in society. Or maybe people's fear of counseling and telling people how they feel, or I don't know. Anyway, the next thing is I realized how much I always knew this. It's not realization at all, but how much I love jazz specifically from the 60s, and how much I like low tech. For instance, the company operates with those like sliding cards, so it's like a physical card that you slide and it brings the door to you, or stuff like intercoms, things with buttons that you press, chairs that swivel up at the press of a button, like just tech that you can trace to mid-century. I think I'm really nostalgic for that era. I don't know why. And there's definitely like a recurring 60s theme with a lot of Pixar films. Like their opening credit scene or their end credit scene is definitely Saul Bass inspired. You know, like Saul Bass was a guy that did graphic animations and graphic design in the 60s and from the 50s to the 70s or something like that. 50s to the 80s. He worked for a long time with his wife. And yeah, like I just really appreciate these little touches. I think, I don't know. Sometimes I think I would be happier if like the aesthetic of the 60s existed right now, or if I were just around when the 60s happened so I can enjoy the aesthetic and the way of life. But obviously that's like a lot of hypothesizing. Like I'm pretty sure there is a lot of stress in the 60s about nukes and, you know, the Cold War, and it wasn't a good time to live. But I miss that era of connection where it feels like the technology was at a point of time where it was just right. Like tech was actually helping you do things, but it wasn't really getting in the way of you living your life. Like now, like AI is really scary to me. I generally feel like it's anti-evolutionary to support AI insofar as it's used more than as a tool to aid humanity. Like I support AI if it's like used to enhance your daily life. Like if you want AI to reword something you already wrote, or if you want to use it as like a learning tool, then obviously like it's a really good thing. But now you see it on the covers of books. Like people are like graphic design artists, I guess, are using AI to completely illustrate the covers of books, and I'm guessing they're passing them off as their own work because a lot of people can't tell whether stuff is AI, right? And that makes me like so mad. It's awful. Like they're killing themselves off. And where was I going? So AI is bad. Oh yeah, and social media. Like it's getting in the way of actually knowing other people for what they are, past the appearances they give you. Does that make sense? Like you follow a person and you see their posts and you make like all sorts of assumptions about their personality, and it gets in the way of you actually talking to them and knowing more about who they are in real life. And it's also getting in the way of just passing time or talking to strangers. Like now that people just see their phones as an excuse to not socialize with people around them, it's pretty awful. So yeah, that just explains my yearning for the technology of a time past. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.